What is up, guys? It's finally after the draft. We're back. We have a super guest here tonight. Ian, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Thanks for having me on, dudes. Here we are, Cinco de Mayo. I'm happy all these rookies finally got a landing spot. I feel like now we got the real fantasy football offseason going on. I must say, though, pouring out for our fallen soldier, Kerryon Johnson. Wasn't that long ago that many of us thought, including myself, that he might just be the next big thing. He had this sick preseason run against the Raiders. I remember when he was coming out, and I was like, I want that dude everywhere. Just goes to show you how short the shelf life of some of these running backs can be here in the year 2021.
Definitely, man. And then we have my awesome guest host for tonight, and I want to thank you for committing podultery to come on and co-host this episode with me. Jay, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Yeah, what's up, man? I'm happy to be here. Happy to be a guest as well. Come on here with Ian, come on here with you, talk a little draft. I mean, we're coming off of pretty much like the most exciting day of the football calendar, the most exciting couple days. So we got a lot to talk about. I'm excited to recap it with you guys. Definitely.
And you want to tell everyone where they can find you, what you do, what you're working on, that kind of thing?
Yeah, man, you can find me at 14 personnel at 14p_pod every Thursday, 9:30 Eastern time with Ben C over there, the Extra Point FF, my co-host. And yeah, we chop it up every Thursday. So same time, same place at 14p_pod.
And then Ian, obviously everyone knows who you are, but why don't you give it all to us and break it down?
Man, I'm just looking at myself in this image. My arms look small as hell in this sweatshirt. I gotta adjust. I'm not skipping bench day that often. My goodness, I gotta adjust. Yeah, I guess you can find me PFF Fantasy Football Podcast at iHeartIt's on Twitter over PFF.com. Guys, T. Higgins is coming on the podcast this Friday. Do not miss it.
Oh, that's awesome.
One of my favorite second-year receivers, and he was a great guy to talk to for a good 15 minutes.
Are you gonna keep the title as Free Auden Tate when T comes on, or what?
I asked him about it, man. I was like, look, T, I think you're awesome, but Auden Tate is one of my favorite players. Can you please tell the people how great Auden Tate is? And he does not disappoint.
And I have to know, for all of our viewers, where does the Auden Tate love come from? Where was it born out of?
It was born in 2019, like week 6 or something, when he had like 5 catches for 90 yards against the Ravens, and every single catch was full-on extension diving, and I was like, what the hell is going on? I knew who he was from, being kind of a preseason DFS degenerate like myself. You kind of learn these people, and obviously if you follow college football, you knew who he was at Florida State. But, man, he just stuck out to me as someone that really was making the most out of his opportunities, and the haters say he can't separate, but, it's like you look at 2019, I think he was number 1 on the team in yards per target. Last year, I mean, he was playing with a few more injuries and obviously somewhat stuff was going on otherwise, but man, I have a partial, I guess, tendency to just give my heart to some of these underused backup type guys that people want to say suck. And if you really want to say someone sucks and they're an NFL football player, you should really kind of reevaluate what you're talking about, because these guys are all awesome, and I don't want people to get that twisted. So if you want to say Auden Tate sucks, Cordero Patterson's a bust, Duke Johnson isn't a 3-down RB, you can get these hands anytime.
Slander. You want to hear a fun Auden Tate fact? I mean, you might know it too, but in Madden, I know you're a big NCAA guy from the other times you come on my show, told us about. You're
playing a higher rated tight end than wide receiver. Is that what you're about to tell me?
What?
Is he a higher rated tight end than wide receiver?
So Madden has the star development, that you have to kind of get the stars.
Oh, you're right.
Auden Tate has been a star development for like the past 2 years, regardless of how much he plays, how well he plays, Madden gives him that star dev. So they clearly see it too, man. Those Madden Raiders that are on the side, they're giving him
I was
star
on
dev.
that forgive me for getting Jay, at the Madden Draft podcast.
Oh, okay. Which one?
I'm talking. Who's the guy that does the mock?
Cole.
Cole,
right? Yeah, Cole. Yeah.
Fantastic guy. Yeah, he does. He had me on. We did a Madden mock draft, and my entire I wanted to get Cordero Patterson, Auden Tate. Those are my guys, and I thought I could get them late because I didn't think they'd be early round picks. And Madden and Cole enlightened me mid broadcast. He's like, actually, both Patterson and Auden Tate have these special stars, and I was like, okay. On the one hand, I'm mad I didn't get them. On the other hand, I'm happy my boys at Madden are seeing what I'm
vindicated. You feel vindicated.
Right, but at the same time, I fully realize how much better NCAA is than Madden. So now I'm siding with the Madden guys, and I'm like, hold on, am I really on the right side of things? But it's all good.
So, obviously, the NFL draft just ended. So, obviously, that's what everyone's talking about right now. But the big pick, pick 3, the San Francisco 49ers pick, they picked Trey Lance. Was that the right pick?
Probably, man. I'm happy it wasn't fucking Mac Jones.
I think we're all happy it wasn't Mac Jones.
I will say though, it's funny, man. It's almost like it's almost like the Taysom Hill thing with the Saints because PFF draft guy comp for Trey Lance was Taysom Hill with actual arm talent. So I'm not saying he's the same player. Trey Lance could be a million times the player Taysom Hill is, but you look at what he does to that offense and just what any scrambling quarterback does. Lamar Jackson, any guy that's going to be a run-first quarterback, like it's amazing in fantasy for that player. But look, having Mac Jones in San Fran, it would have sucked because we want Justin Fields, we want Trey Lance, we want a better quarterback, but it really would have been better for all those running backs and all those wide receivers in Fantasyland. And that's kind of the same thing with that Saints competition right now. So yeah, Trey Lance, man, I think he kind of deserves almost dynasty QB1. If we're playing a game of fantasy football, not real life, we just want that dual threat talent more than ever. And I think he does have that over Fields, over Lawrence. And, I get the argument there. But with that said, man, we've seen it again and again. When you're a dual threat quarterback, you scramble instead of dumping the ball down, and you're just as much of a threat to score inside the 10-yard line than anybody else. So great for Trey Lance. I want Trey Lance on my fantasy team, but I'd be far more excited about Trey Sermon this year if his quarterback was Mac Jones than potentially Trey Lance.
So yeah, and obviously, you worry about the fact that Trey Lance is going to run so much more and that he might damage that San Francisco offense. And Jimmy obviously did not do much, for that offense outside of throwing it like 12, 15 times a game. Do you think Trey Lance can develop into a guy that like throws the ball more towards that like 30, 35 times a game? Or is he going to be more of this like dual threat guy that we've come to expect from like Teddy Bridgewater and guys like that, guys who kind of alternate almost 50-50?
Teddy's not too much of a dual threat, but I think with Trey, him going out there, man, in his last 19 games in college, only one time did he have fewer than 40 yards rushing or he failed to score a touchdown. So he's that special type of player that is not only athletic enough. I mean, like when I was going through the pre-draft quarterbacks, like Lawrence and Zach Wilson have proven that they can move too. Like they're not statues by any stretch of the imagination, but Lance has that like just – not even an it factor, but like the it factor in Fantasyland that is like, I'm a quarterback and I don't care about running in head on to a linebacker. So I think, just again, having that mentality and him taking off like that, he's in a lot of other offenses, it'd be tough to fully get in on him. But I think if Kyle Shanahan says he's the pick, man, he's got to be the pick because it's not going to be easier to pass the ball anywhere else. You look at, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, nobody for the past 3 years has averaged more yards per attempt on passes thrown behind the line of scrimmage than Jimmy Garoppolo. So Shanahan can really just create, I think, open receivers on his own. They happen to all be, yak monsters, and I think Lance is at least good enough to play within the Shanahan system.
Okay. I definitely agree with you on that. I think Trey Lance was a great pick there. I'm also extremely pleased, as I'm sure Jay is as well, that Mac Jones had nothing to do with that pick, and they said that it was never going to be Mac. It was all an elaborate smokescreen. But, I'd be lying if I wasn't salivating a little bit at Justin Fields, who I think is ready. I think he's more ready right now. I think Trey Lance has the highest ceiling in this draft. Like, for sure, if he becomes everything we think he is, he's going to be so good. But did the Bears get the steal of the first round in landing Justin Fields the way they did?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, I mean, look, I like Justin Fields as my QB2, but if Kyle Shanahan's going to say Trey Lance is his guy there, then I think we need to kind of react accordingly. But with Fields, man, he's my QB1 for 2021 alone. Give me Lance for the next 10 years. Again, I trust Shanahan enough there. And I think Fields and Lance are close enough in terms of their best case scenarios to kind of just go with the guy with the better coach. But with Fields in 2021, I'm not buying this Andy Dalton is going to start for longer than a few weeks. Like, most ridiculous comparison we've heard all off season is this: Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes can be Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. Like, one, let's not compare any rookie quarterback to Patrick Mahomes, who right now is on the trajectory to be the best quarterback we've seen. And two, like, Alex Smith was if not great, at least an above average quarterback for the Chiefs for years. Like, they just got Andy Dalton off the street in Chicago. shove your freaking Pro Bowl numbers up your ass, man. I do not want to hear a single thing about Pro Bowls after Trevor Siemian declined an invite about 5 years ago. So Andy Dalton is a dirt average quarterback at this point in his career. Fields needs to be out there. And once he is out there, man, it's one of the more dual threat friendly quarterbacks in this class. I mean, with the 4.44, I think he is probably more just overall athletically gifted than Lance. Lance has more of that, again, Taysom Hill, like, I'm just going to run the ball 10 plus times a game. I think Fields is more of a pure QB, but I think he deserves it, man. And again, although it's unfortunate he won't be out there immediately, once they're out there, we're going to want to rank Fields over Lawrence, even though in real life, I think we would all probably take the Clemson product.
I definitely think that. Jay, what about you?
Well, man, Andy Dalton can't last long if anything, if he gets in at all. I mean, especially when you just talk about kind of the outside of football thing, and I'm a big narrative guy. I'm always kind of looking at those narratives, and it's like the Bears haven't had a quarterback like this that they're this excited about. And really, my whole lifetime, I'm 25, there hasn't really been that exciting of a quarterback to come in to get this fan base as amped up as Justin Fields has. So Justin Fields is going to play early, if not right away. And I mean, I think it's great for fantasy. I mean, I saw one of the comments here, free Allen Robinson. I mean, I think it's great for Allen Robinson, probably his best quarterback he's ever going to have or ever had thus far that he's going to be playing with. Right. So, man, I like it. I think it's great. And in terms of Trey Lance going to San Francisco, yeah, I mean, you were right to assume I am happy it isn't Mac Jones, just in terms of sanity in general, I guess. I just didn't really think that Mac Jones deserved to go 3 over some of those other guys. I'm a big, I think Justin Fields should have gone 2nd, personally. I don't really understand how the Jets took Zach Wilson over Justin Fields. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah. I definitely think that, and this is going to turn out to be another one of those, mobile guys, kind of disrespected, falls a little bit. We're going through the whole Deshaun Watson thing all over again, obviously before everything that happened this year. I think Justin Fields is going to be a very good quarterback. It wouldn't shock me if he's, among the top 10 right away, like Ian said. And, we'll obviously go from there. But the last major trade of the first round was the Eagles trading up for Devonta Smith. And Jay and I are both huge Eagles fans. So we were, very hyped. Devonta Smith, very unpopular, but I had him as my wide receiver 1 over Chase. Just because I think Smith is a more complete guy right now. I think he's very pro-ready. He's going to step into that offense, and I think he's going to get 100-plus targets year 1.
Man, you must be getting some backlash for outright 1 because I've said Chase is post-draft. I got Chase 1A, Devontae 1B, and people are like calling for my neck over that. So I can't even imagine what going all in on the take is. But from a pure volume perspective, I think you're right. For me, even if it is 10 or 15 fewer targets, I'll take Burrow over Hurts and Chase over Smith. So, but it is, I think, in the same tier because, there isn't another rookie wide receiver in this sort of situation to command this level of targets. So we were kind of looking at the Lions and the Titans, maybe even the Packers as teams were like, if they really went all in on someone, we could see that guy really, fight for that kind of rookie target lead. But they all ended up waiting a little bit more than I think we expected. So, I'm waiting for Zach Ertz to get traded. We've had these rumors for freaking months now already, but assuming he is out of the picture eventually, man, we could see Devontae push for, easily triple-digit targets, and if not, 120, 130. So, hey, if they're trading up and using him drafting him as early as they did, you would hope they have a plan for how they're going to use him. I bet on Devontae Smith over, not because I doubt him as a player, but because I thought, as small as he is, maybe some of these, NFL, bona fide wannabe alpha guys would kind of dock him for that. But hey, they didn't, and hopefully the Eagles feed him the targets that his talent seems to be worthy of.
That's really what it comes down to for me. What he said kind of just at the last part there is that the Eagles, putting in that capital to getting him, making the trade up to go get him to, was, as Eagles fans, I wanted, once we moved back and the rumors were coming up of us moving back up to maybe get one of those pass catchers, maybe J.C. Horn, maybe Surtain, we were kind of waiting to see. And I know you and I talked about it a lot, Sam, just as, just talking about the Eagles. And I thought, I would love us to get Devontae. It makes so much sense, but we're not going to do it. We're not going to go wide receiver 2 years in a row in the first round. They did. They invested in doing it. They traded up to do it. They only gave up a third-round pick to move back up. And I think that investment alone is really what's going to start to really lead to him getting all those targets. I mean, he's a special player where he's obviously going to be our number 1 target, I think. I mean, I guess obviously and I think are contradictory. he's going to be our top target. And, we'll see really what that means in like a Jalen Hurts offense, what we were talking about, but he's going to be a target hog, and Devontae's a guy that can kind of just, take over with those targets. So I think it's great. I mean, Eagles, dominated that trade. That trade was great in terms of the return and really what we had to give up to move back up. So I'm really hyped on Devontae. I was just in a startup actually that I was just doing where Jamar Chase went in the 3rd round. Devontae went in the 6th, which is interesting. I think Jamar Chase is probably the better prospect coming out right away. A little bit more raw. Devontae might be, more polished coming out, I guess. But people are higher on Jamar Chase. I don't know that he should be going 4 rounds higher than Devontae in a startup necessarily. So,
yeah, and I definitely feel the same way. I think that's the main reason why Chase is at 2 for me in my rankings. I think pure talent alone, Chase is probably the most talented guy in the draft. But I have to go with the fact that I think Devontae is like very ready right now. He's very polished. Obviously, he's a senior declare, which kind of hurts him a little bit, but it gives him that extra year that he took and put up a show. I mean, he's the first Heisman winner that was a wide receiver in 30 years since Desmond Howard did it. So
hey, you see Reggie Wayne going to bat for him, saying Devontae's going to win Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and it wouldn't shock me at all. He's going to be fed. He's going to be force-fed volume in Philadelphia because, like it or not, I'm going to be very frank, here. Jalen Reagor is going to be the wide receiver 2 in this offense. Dallas Goedert is the tight end. Zach Ertz, what I've heard is that he's going to be a post June 1st cut because the Eagles, I think, have decided that they're probably asking too much and they're not willing to let him go for less. So they will cut him to let him pick his own spot. I would be shocked if he goes really anywhere but Buffalo or Indy. Reunite with Frank Reich and Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Hurts, you look at some of these offenses, Hurts and the Eagles, Tua and the Dolphins, like these. How many wide receivers can they really enable? Like if I'm going with Devontae, Miami's a little bit more crowded, but it is, not unfortunate. But even with the Bengals, man, I do believe in Burrow, but T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and these guys would have been major beneficiaries if they had gone tackle instead of Chase. So yeah, Reagor, I'm with you. He's gonna be the 2, and it is kind of unfortunate that Fuller and Parker, we can't be quite as on these guys. Nothing against Tua or Hurts. I think they're fine. It's great. Hurts has already thrown for 300 yards twice. It took us 3 years to be able to say that about Josh Allen, for example. So, I'm not out on them per se, but, there are only so many offenses in this league. Cowboys, I think the Bengals could be in there, if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Broncos, Chiefs, and a few other ones that can get our 3 fantasy relevant, pass game options. But I'm just not so sure Miami or Philly are those spots. Hopefully, targets just condense enough around these guys to make it worth our while anyway.
And I definitely agree with that too. I think Dallas Goedert is barely going to be a tight end 1 this year. He's there, but in such a weird landscape with tight ends, like the 7 to 12 range is a crapshoot. It's literally throwing darts blindfolded.
Yeah, what's a tight end 1 these days?
Yeah,
man, you're one of the top guys, or you're in the rest of them.
It's not. You have your top 5 guys with Hawkinson and Pitts filling in the back end of that preferred bracket, and then you have Mark Andrews and. Then it's kind of a wasteland after that, and you're really not sure what you're going to do there. But I did want to hop back onto the Dolphins there. Who was did they go Jalen Waddle because both they had their eye on both Alabama receivers is what most people heard. Was there a reason they went with Waddle over Smith?
Man, how many of these teams just really seem to prioritize hooking up their quarterback with a former college teammate? We had Lawrence get ETN back, Burrow and Chase, Tua and Devontae, and then Tua and Waddle, and then Hurts and Devontae. So, man, I thought Waddle deserved to be wide receiver 2. I don't want to come at the Devontae wide receiver 1 pre-draft truth or too hard on this podcast, but I do think Waddle. If I was the one making the decisions, I would probably take Waddle over Devontae. So I get it, man. He does fit that slot, just like a glove in that offense. So, as someone that had probably more Lynn Bowden than I should have in some of the pre-draft, best balls, I wasn't thrilled about the pick. And again, it does complicate things with Will Fuller and Devontae Parker. But, again, I do have my wide receiver 1 for rookies. It's 1A, 1B with Chase and Devontae. But, I was talking to my guy Andrew Erickson over at PFF mid-podcast, and I was talking through why I think Waddle is below them. And, I just started thinking, I was like, man, Will Fuller and Devontae Parker, like these are the guys, like these are the, least worst examples of like not injury prone guys I can think of that are going to like limit this stud number 6 overall pick from getting targets. So I'm already second guessing myself a little bit, but I think Jay kind of hit the nail on the head before when he said like as great as Chase is and as, much as I think most people are comfortable ranking him as the, consensus wide receiver 1 here, the 4-round difference between, him and Smith and even Waddle is really just not anything we should be treating as a good take. So I think wide receivers 4 and 5 where it gets a little more interesting. I know Elijah Moore at the Jets is good. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Lions, is someone I'm getting behind. That's one of those where, as someone that probably doesn't grind the rookie prospects as much before the draft as a lot of people, Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be someone where I'm going to look like pretty smart for taking on that volume or pretty freaking stupid for
great best ball option there.
Like every other wide receiver ever born. But, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, again, I get it. Top 3-round picks all day, every day, literally since 2010, top 12 QBs, 24 running back wide receivers, and top 12 tight ends. 80% plus of top performing rookies in those groups have been drafted in the top 3 rounds. So it needs to be an exception if you're going outside the top 3 rounds. I do think Amon-Ra St. Brown and probably Michael Carter fit that criteria the most, though.
And I know Ian dabbles in this a little bit too, the defending Lamar Jackson, appreciating Lamar Jackson. I see Ian posting stuff all the time about Lamar and Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman going to Baltimore was something I was like, that was probably my favorite Eagles pick of the draft. Just having that happen and showing that the Ravens were going to invest in getting him a pass catcher, and that everybody else that says that that's not going to help Lamar, it's not going to make him a better passer, all that nonsense. Like that's just not true. You get him a guy like Rashad Bateman, a guy that's a true wide receiver in that offense with compliments like Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews obviously being their tight end. But those guys are all going to get better from a guy like Rashad Bateman being there, and maybe Tylan Wallace if he's involved. And Lamar is just such a better passer and player, I feel like, than he gets credit for based on how their offense has been run these past couple of years. Now that he has actual weapons with the compliments in addition to a guy like Bateman, who I think can be a true wide receiver 1, right away, not necessarily in fantasy, but is going to be somebody who is going to garner the attention of the top corner on the opposite side and open up space for a Mark Andrews, for a Hollywood Brown, for those guys to really get after it. So I loved the Rashad Bateman pick. That was probably my favorite one. I was a little confused. Not confused, but Elijah Moore, I kind of expected after the draft to feel a little bit more excited about where he was going to land. Landing in New York just didn't really get me that excited. They have, not that, the talent can't outweigh, but they have Jamison Crowder. They brought in Corey Davis. They have Denzel Mims. I'm not a huge Zach Wilson guy in general. And Elijah Moore, I feel like could have landed so many better spots where I would have felt so hyped about, him post-draft, where now I'm kind of in between. I think he's a great talent. Don't love the landing spot.
I think Crowder's getting cut at some point.
Yeah, he's got a $10 million hit, right?
But what's weird is usually when we see these situations where the guy lingers on, it's like a post-June thing. But it's the same pre or post-June 1st. So for whatever reason, the Jets have felt like hanging on to Crowder. But no, it was in February, I think we got the report that they were likely going to cut him. You draft Elijah Moore in round 2, that would seem to be another indication. But here we are, and they still have not quite cut him yet. So, no, it's good points all around.
Yeah, and I like Elijah Moore a lot. I've been targeting him a lot late in best ball because I think he's just going to be peppered with targets year 1. I think they do cut Crowder. I don't see any reason why you keep him if cutting him, and he's old. He's a little bit injury prone. I think he's 30 now. You save $10 million if you cut him. Those are all reasons, very good reasons for an NFL franchise to cut a player, and they've probably done it for much less before. Elijah Moore being
I was going to say real quick, like Jay was saying too, it's helping the rookie quarterbacks. And when I said before, it's causing Miami and Philly adding these wide receivers. It's annoying only for the wide receivers on those teams because all we want in fantasy is more targets. Obviously, these are great real life moves to surround your quarterbacks with more options. It just complicates things in fantasy lands. With the Giants, Kadarius Toney, where is he going to play?
Yeah.
I don't really know. But hey, adding him and Kenny Galladay, like that's of course good news for Daniel Jones. You should surround your guy. But man, like the worst thing we can have is an offense with 5 or 6 like good pass game targets. Like with the Ravens, I hope Bateman, takes Lamar back into MVP form, if not better as a pure passer. But man, that offense, like who are we going to confidently project for even like 80 targets at this point? It's just really hard to get a grip on. So that's, I feel like the people get the most mad at fantasy football when they like mistake it as like someone trying to talk about real life football. And this is one of those situations where we just want to be really clear about that.
Go ahead, Sam.
Well, I wanted to touch on what you thought were the best picks. We've gone over, some of like the big moves and everything, but what was the best pick in the first round? Not necessarily completely fantasy relevant, but just for like a football reason.
Well, okay. It was actually probably the worst pick, but I'm gonna twist into the best. Like, get a load of this.
Alex Leatherwood or what?
I love Najee Harris to the Steelers because we have a first down workhorse and we maybe have the single most fantasy friendly role in the sport that we love and call fantasy football, and that is the Steelers workhorse RB1. From 2014 to 2018, man, whether it was Le'Veon Bell, whether it was D'Angelo Williams when Le'Veon Bell got suspended, whether it was James Conner, whether it was whoever is calling on the phone right now, whoever was the Steelers RB1, they were getting absolute bed touches week in and week out. So with Najee there, man, people want to bitch and moan about the offensive line, and this and that. But like, let's look back. Let's pretend for a second that we can all just, we already know how good every offensive line in 2021 is. We're all that, much football diehard, so we can just project who's going to be a bottom 3 offensive line. Like last year, the 3 bottom offensive lines in PFF run blocking grades were the Chargers, the Dolphins, and the Steelers. Like Austin Eckler and Myles Gaskin were both top 12 PPR RBs on a per game basis. Obviously, the Steelers had plenty of injuries going around, and they just added one of 5 or 6 running backs that we could actually project for 300 plus touches and feel fine about it. Like, we're overthinking this, everybody. And it's, when I'm talking about Najee and Joe Mixon now, like, again, the amount of O-line experts on Twitter is just baffling to me because it's something that we seem to not talk about too much, but everyone's got an opinion on it these days. And so Najee Harris, not a good real life first round pick, but I love it for fantasy because we are getting a legit workhorse 3-down RB in a league that doesn't have many of them left these days.
Definitely. I think he's going to get fed. I think he's a lock for 280 plus touches first year. He's going to get a lot of work in the air. They'll work him in for that. Ben's probably going to be moving slowly in the pocket for his life, since, they didn't really address the line. So he'll find ways to dump it off to him as well and let Najee work his yak magic. And what about you, Jay? What do you think was the best pick in the round?
Dude, the best pick of the first round, I don't want to double dip on this again, but it was Justin Fields, man, going at 11 for me. I really think Justin Fields should have gone 2. I said it's before the draft, and, I might get some heat for this, but the only other player in this draft that if the Jaguars picked at 1, if the Jaguars picked Justin Fields at 1, I would not have, lost my mind. I would have been like, okay, he's great, and I really like him, and it makes sense to me. And I don't think it was ever going to happen. I don't have any qualms with them taking Trevor Lawrence number 1. Mm-hmm. But I think Fields should have been the clear 2. And probably the clear 3. And now, he goes to Chicago at 11. I don't know how Denver passes on him unless they got something up their sleeve to get Aaron Rodgers. But I think Justin Fields is the best pick of the first round. I think it does, have a big fantasy impact too, like we were talking about with Allen Robinson, probably Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney. I just think Fields, elevates that offense. And I'll, eat my words if I'm wrong about it. The NFL must know something that we don't about Justin Fields, I guess. But him going at 11 to Chicago was just a smash, a huge win.
Definitely. And we have this comment from Kanban 45. What do you think of the whole ETN landing in Jacksonville? Just to screw over all the James Robinson truthers that have flooded Twitter. And I was definitely one of them. I know Jay was as well. What do you think about that, Ian?
Let go, people. I'm sorry. Urban Meyer does not like your running back anymore. I tried to tell you all this before the draft. This is why Robinson was like, a low-end RB2 before the draft happened because, look, as unlikely as it was, it came up. He is the only undrafted top 12 rookie running back of the past decade. Philip Lindsay, RB13. if you want to hang your hat on that, fine. There's two of them. Like, Robinson did everything he could have done last year. But again, just people thinking that James Robinson is this sort of, elite all-world talent is like part of the problem with like this. Like, what, does everyone think James Robinson entered this situation, like this golden Jaguars offense last year, and he just, had a good offense around him and like was the top 12 RB for that reason? Like, people are like shouting down Joe Mixon and Najee Harris right now while saying like, look at James Robinson. James Robinson's great. There are over 30 great running backs on this planet. That's why the position doesn't matter as much as we would like to think it is. So, I love James Robinson. You love James Robinson. Urban Meyer does not love James Robinson because he just spent a freaking first-round pick on the position. Every single historical, signing of this tells us that the first-round pick is going to get fed unless we happen to talk to Pete Carroll and it's Rashad Penny versus Chris Carson. I really do not think that's the case. At a minimum, ETN is their third down back. I think Urban's doing a little bit of coach speak there. I think he takes over the whole damn backfield sooner rather than later. But if someone still wants to believe in James Robinson, I mean, sell James Robinson to that guy because again, great player, but he doesn't have the opportunity. That's all we want. We don't want great players in fantasy football. We want great players with opportunity. Unfortunately, that's no longer James Robinson.
And I'll back that up to say that Ian was on that wave because I hit you up in March, just, talking about it. I said, I got trade for Jacobs and J-Rob. I was Josh Jacobs and James Robinson. I was completely torn. And Ian and I were talking. I hit him up about it.
Yeah, and I told you to take Jacobs there. Remember?
I'd keep Jacobs. Yeah. And they're both, got a different situation now that we're talking in, now that we're talking in early May. But the Jacobs situation is different. He has that first-round draft capital. We won't spend too much time on him. But, yeah, for J-Rob, man, I agree. It's just I'm trying to find any way to, reason with it. But it's just not there. You spent a first-round pick on another running back who clearly you looked at and clearly Urban Meyer watched James Robinson from last year and was like, yeah, no thanks. I'm going to take Travis Etienne. Putting on board that, another narrative here, he's Trevor Lawrence's best friend. He's his college teammate. He's not going to not be on the field with Trevor Lawrence during his rookie season. And part of that's the comfortability, how much more comfortable is Trevor Lawrence going to be in his rookie season having his boy right next to him? That's just one of those things. He's not going to be a third down back. He's going to take it over, man.
I am starting to get worried about the Jaguars offense and kind of the Urban Meyer experiment as a whole. I'm Columbus, Ohio. I like Urban Meyer, man. Why is your biggest regret Kadarius Toney?
That's what I was just going to say.
That's worrisome.
Come on.
Why would you even share that with everybody? Right. That you were going to that just threw a loop on the whole thing. You're like, well, what are you going to do with Shenault then? What was the plan?
Bro, I'm not sure who said the comment. They're talking James Robinson, Etienne. If you ask Urban Meyer, he throws Carlos Hyde into the mix. That's I've been saying this about the Colts too. It's not that Carlos Hyde or Marlon Mack. It's James Robinson is better than Carlos Hyde. Jonathan Taylor is obviously better than Marlon Mack, but it really doesn't matter if the coaches insist on still using them in a three-back committee, people. There just aren't that many one-back systems these days. I get it, and I'm sure the Colts or the or the Jaguars would rightfully feature their better running back as the year goes on, but we're trying to follow the volume, man. It doesn't always tell us what we want to necessarily see, but, we got to try to just stick to our guns as much as we can.
Yeah, and I think before you go, Jay, I think the best part about James Robinson now is the fact that he only signed a 3-year deal as a UDFA. So he's gone after next year, year after next year, and that's the best part of this is that maybe he goes somewhere, maybe he can still get traded. I know everyone's praying for the Falcons. I don't see it happening personally. I think they would. They were in prime position to take someone. They would have if they had really any plan of it. But we definitely have to accept ETN. Will slowly take over. It'll be an ugly split for the first few weeks, and then ETN will take more and more. But I think that's that, and that was just a confusing trade to me. But it just says that Urban was not satisfied with James Robinson being the guy, and obviously didn't think he could replicate it again.
Bro, J-Rob's making financial business decisions right now. He's like, I'm an undrafted free agent. Here's what I got. Here's what I got left. Travis Etienne's coming in as a first-round pick. I mean, man, it's ugly in that sort of situation. And going back to kind of his original question about just the Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, Etienne, James Robinson, yeah, I would say so. Maybe to a little bit of like a lesser extent, like kind of what Ian was talking about. I wouldn't say that the Jags are just going to, pop up as, this immediate high-powered offense necessarily.
Right.
We got to see what Urban's like really going to do with it. But I don't think that's a bad comp, kind of, and maybe a little bit of a lesser scale. I don't know that I would say Etienne's going to be, Alvin Kamara right off the bat. But in terms of kind of sharing that workload like that, I could see something where, it doesn't hurt them to, like you were talking about trading James Robinson. Like, why? It doesn't hurt them to hold on to James Robinson, and just have him there. And it's just one of those situations for fantasy where it's like there's not that much of an investment in him. So the second James Robinson, even if he starts playing right off the bat in the season, the second he messes up, the second Urban Meyer is not happy with him, Travis Etienne's taking over. Yeah.
Definitely. And, for me, it wasn't so long ago that most people thought of James or Travis Etienne as like the main 3-down back in this class. We didn't really start talking about Javonte Williams until the last few weeks of the season, after that Miami game that he was astounding in. I know that's when I started really following Javonte Williams. And Najee Harris, while he's been a great runner for the past couple of years, he really improved his pass catching last year. It was not that good in 2019. But let's get our worst picks out of the way. Ian, what was your worst pick of the first round?
Probably Etienne, man. Let's keep beating the dead horse while we're at it, man. I will say, with Etienne, for me, he kind of was the RB3 coming into this. Now, if he had come out last year, if we were only evaluating 2017 to 2019, I'd be all over Etienne. Man, I've played watched my Buckeyes play the dude twice when it mattered most. Obviously, seen plenty of other games of his, but he looked like the second coming of CJ2K in terms of just you held your breath every time this dude touched the ball from 2017 to 2019. What happened in 2020? He gained 15 pounds. There was COVID thrown around. The Clemson offensive line got worse. There are some excuses that add up and make sense. He wasn't awful, but I just didn't see the same guy that I think could, go into any scheme and just absolutely ball out regardless of who's around him. That's what I saw with Saquon Barkley. That's what I saw with Etienne for the first part of his career. I don't know so much now. So with Javonte, man, we would hope he beats out Melvin Gordon pretty freaking quickly. I'm still waiting to see if Denver's going to punish Melvin for that late season DUI. And there's a 2020 version of, Leonard Fournette in 2021. I think it's Melvin Gordon. Do not draft him as no matter how far he falls, even when you think Melvin Gordon's a value, he's not. He is honestly, I think, a cut candidate before too long. And either way, it's trending towards Javonte. So, I would not. Yeah, could not be me. And just draft Najee, and you will not regret it.
So, yeah. I want to ask, based on that, does Javonte move up to your RB2? For this year, right away, is Javonte the RB2? Is he going to take over that job in camp or right away, and he'll be the guy, he'll be that RB2 for this season and going forward?
I'm going to have him in my top 24 running backs you should draft. Here's the thing we got to kind of consider, man, and it's with the quarterbacks. Okay, I understand Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence are the favorites to start 17 games out of these guys, but who do we want in week 5 once Lance, Fields, and all these guys are starting? We're going to want Fields and Lance. So as I've seen some of the best in the industry that we have these ranking competitions. Fantasy Pros does this. You're really incentivized in these ranking competitions to not take a stand on people and just kind of trust the median projections. And that's great for the ranking competitions. I don't know if it's great for the whole trying to win your fantasy football league, competition thing that we should be more primarily worried about. So, as much as, you want to kind of rank the guys and do our projections for every single player in the league, I think at some point you got to line these guys up and say, when both these guys are starting, who do I want to be playing? And I do think Javonte, he fits that bill. Look at rookie running backs, man. It's usually not clear from the get-go. We have Saquons and Zekes that do it. But, for people to act like Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers last year were just out of the gate balling out, man, it doesn't happen. So while it might be a little muddled early on for Javonte and Etienne, history tells us that these, first, second, even third round running backs, if they are worth a damn, they're going to, be making their money here come fantasy playoffs. So yeah, Javonte for me is someone that I want to prioritize because Melvin Gordon, yeah, it was 2018 maybe, but did not exactly see that from him last year. And I think with that tackle breaking ability, Javonte is right in there. We'll also say, I mentioned Sermon earlier, some of the concerns with Trey Lance. To me, like Sermon versus Michael Carter is the next conversation with the running back position because I can see it working out for both, but at the same time, we're just looking at two Shanahan-based offenses and potential committee backfields. Obviously, the Jets, it's a softer situation, but, again, it depends what the coach is thinking on us.
I am deathly afraid of that San Francisco offense personally. Beyond Kittle, I don't know if there's and Lance, obviously, I don't know if there's a guy I'm touching there, at least for this year, possibly like going forward. I'm interested to see how Brandon Ayuk handles, not being the number one option in that offense, like how far we really see his stats kind of go down since he did so much damage of his without Debo or Kittle on the field.
He's so good, though. I hear you, but he's so good.
He's so talented, but the opportunity is just not going to be there. We both said it on the show. Jimmy G and Lance are not going to throw the ball as much as they really should. We're going to see more of a balanced offense, and a Shanahan offense is always going to be run first and pass later. So, Jay, what about you? What was your what pick were you kind of turned off by?
Yeah, well, first off, I want to say with Ian's comment about kind of, these second round running backs or late first round running backs that kind of, this it doesn't hit. I learned that lesson with Nick Chubb, man. I love Nick Chubb coming out, and then in fantasy, I just wasn't patient enough with him, and I definitely, paid for it. But moving on to that, and I don't want to be a homer on this, or a hater, I guess, but Kadarius Toney in the first round to the Giants was just kind of puzzling to me, puzzling for fantasy. He's definitely dropping in all these rookie drafts too. He's available in like the late second round of rookie drafts in dynasty leagues because I think people are a little, perplexed with how he's going to be used and how he's going to fit into that offense and how they're really going to use him. And I'm not necessarily sure yet either. I'm not a huge fan of Daniel Jones. I think this is kind of his hot seat season, which is why they're loading him up with all these weapons. It's, make or break for him. Daniel Jones either hits or he doesn't. And I think the Giants move on from him if he doesn't. But Kadarius Toney's kind of puzzling to me. I feel like he's going to be somebody that we're kind of unsure about how he's going to be used now, and I think during the season too, we're going to see him in spurts. But in terms of fantasy, I just don't see him being super useful right away. And it was just kind of an interesting pick for me. And the reports were all coming out they were going to get Devontae before the Eagles traded up, and they traded back, got Toney. So that's probably my least favorite pick in terms of fantasy and just kind of. I'll just stick to the fantasy part of it. I saw some Alex Leatherwood comments in the comment board here, but I'll just stick to the Kadarius Toney pick here in terms of fantasy. I think it's going to be confusing. I don't know that he's going to really be used in the right way. So, yeah.
And for me, for my worst pick, I want to go and ask Ian, where do you think what do you think happens to Aaron Rodgers? Does he stay? Does he go? Where does he go?
I don't think he plays with anyone other than the Packers. If he might retire, I don't see the Packers trading him. I just gun to my head, I don't see it.
Yeah. Dude, what a thrill though, that report just dropping right before the draft. I was walking with a bunch of buddies and like that report drops. I'm getting texts from like, my dad, all these people are like, there's Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, dude, I don't know. This is wild, right?
Bro,
this is so crazy.
I was in Sydney for our PFF draft show, and we had like for days been rehearsing kind of like what we're going to talk about for the hour before the draft. And then this shit pops up, right after the Tebow news. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, all those things we're going to talk about. We're talking about Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, bro, and then he's at Kentucky Derby wearing his Turd Ferguson, just like chilling, man. Like he doesn't care about what everyone's talking about.
Bro, it was funny. I was just fucking around on Twitter like I do most of the time, and I was, of course, messing with the situation. I said that I said that Jordan Love called Aaron Rodgers Aaron from the.
I saw that.
From the skit, and like the worst part about having a tweet go viral, like you love it and people think it's funny and stuff, but then like for the next 2 or 3 days, you have these people that don't get it, that don't follow you, but they see the tweet, and people are just like, I really don't think he said that. It's funny if he did, but I really don't think his report is true. It's like, God, people, I said sources. Like this is a joke. Like, oh man, but it's I love that our sport. I love the sport we love. NFL is this entertaining, even though we're still months away from actual game being played.
So that obviously feeds into my worst pick. I thought it was the Packers, with one last FU to Aaron Rodgers before he either leaves or retires or just sits out. Whatever he does, I don't think he's happy with the fact that they selected Eric Stokes in the first round.
You don't think Eric Stokes is going to keep Rodgers in Green Bay? What are you talking about, man?
I mean, I guess I could be wrong, but the guy is.
But what about Amari Rodgers? Ian, what are your thoughts on that? If Rodgers does stay, how are you looking at Amari Rodgers?
I would probably have him higher. I mean, this is best case for him, obviously. Yeah. Career, fantasy, real life, and all that. Mm-hmm. I don't know that, we saw what it was last year, man. I think Devontae and MVS get similar targets, and we probably just see Lazard and, Rodgers I think Rodgers eats into Lazard this year, and next year he probably takes the hell over. It just takes a while for receivers in Green Bay to earn Rodgers' trust and kind of get that job in the offense. But, man, for a guy that some people even wonder if he could be, could or should be a running back, I mean, this is best case. Give him that prime Randall Cobb role, and let's freaking do it, baby. I mean, what he can do after the catch. And I mean, I don't think he's he's someone that's better in the slot, but I don't think he's someone that, can't win downfield at the same time. So, hey, if Aaron Rodgers likes him, that's good enough for me. It's unfortunate, he might not have that quarterback going for him. But, yeah, I think Rodgers and even to a lesser extent, man, Cornell Powell, both those Clemson wide receivers, I think end up in great situations. We'll see if Powell can steal some reps from my guy, Mecole Hardman. I'm not sure if it's going to work out. Maybe this is a year, maybe not. We'll see what happens.
Hey, he's no Jake Kumaro, but maybe he can earn some trust.
Bro, Jake Kumaro, Jeff Janis, what could have been, man?
The unsung, forgotten legends of the Green Bay Packers. What a shame. But let's move on to who we thought won and lost the draft. Ian, who won?
Chargers look freaking great. Browns did a good job getting their defense fixed up. I think those are kind of two obvious ones, but for good reason, man. I would say the one guy two guys going on the radar on this whole Chargers situation, man. One, I think we could maybe see Mike Williams make a legit leap up. I've always been on the bandwagon that Mike Williams is, one of the better number 2 receivers in the entire NFL. And, last year with Herbert coming in, doing his thing, Mike's always a little bit banged up, even though he doesn't miss many games. Keenan Allen's a target hog. If we could just get Mike Williams triple-digit targets for once in his career, I really think he could make something out of it. On the other side of things, though, man, Austin Eckler might just be what everybody hopes Alvin Kamara still is. I mean, hey, Joe Lombardi, old Saints QB coach, is now over there in LA. He will be calling plays. And Eckler, man, the concern last year was Tyrod Taylor and a rookie quarterback. Well, we've now found out that rookie quarterback looks like one of the better, players that we've seen play quarterback in their first year in recent memories. So, Eckler is someone that should not be getting out of any first round. I don't think he really is. But, man, if we're talking full point PPR, Eckler is someone that could be up there, in that top 2 or even 3 range at running back. I feel like all these undrafted guys, even after they've established themselves in the NFL, they're still kind of working behind the 8 ball a little bit. But, this is who was it? One of the guys at Fantasy Points, I think, had a tweet today. It's Chargers hype season, one of my favorite yearly traditions. So I get it. We've looked at the Chargers in the offseason for a lot of years and said, damn, they got a pretty talented roster. But healthy Derwin, healthy Bosa, Asante Samuels, Rashawn Slater, man. Even Josh Palmer, man. That's a great upgrade over Guyton and Tyron Johnson, even though he's not going to be the guy. So love what the Chargers are doing. Here's the hope in their organization can kind of figure it out for once.
Definitely.
The Chargers draft fell perfectly. I was watching with one of my buddies who's a huge Chargers fan. I'm out here in California, and so there's a lot of Chargers fans out here. Not as many, but there are some Chargers fans out here. And I'm watching with – dude, it fell perfectly. Rashawn Slater falls to them. Asante Samuel Jr. falls to them. Everything that they needed to happen pretty much happened. In terms of my winners, I don't really know how we're, I guess categorizing it, but I would say two players that came out winners from this is Sam Darnold and Lamar Jackson for me, and they came out big winners. And I think I'm not a huge Sam Darnold stan. I'm not going to go to bat for him all the time, but this situation in Carolina is nice, man. Like they've got DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Terrace Marshall, they've got McCaffrey, they got Chuba Hubbard, who they got late, who we'll see if they find something for him. But Sam Darnold came out a winner, man. And they didn't address the quarterback. He came out. He's going to be leading this offense, and I think that he's actually going to have more value than people think. And he's a guy that he's still young. What is he, like 23? Maybe he's turning 24. And I think he comes out a big winner. And then kind of what I was alluding to earlier with Rashad Bateman is not necessarily just him. It's Lamar Jackson, who I think comes out a big winner, man. Like they did things to help him in terms of they were already the leading scoring offense the past 2 years now. So I mean, dude. Adding those kind of weapons to an offense that, already has those things working for him, I think Lamar comes out a big winner. I think Sam Darnold comes out a big winner. And those are kind of my two in terms of just, short explanation.
I want to name someone who we haven't really talked about yet. We keep talking about the Bears, but who was more of a winner than Allen Robinson finally getting a QB that is not garbage here? I mean, I've been waiting for Allen Robinson to do good.
Don't talk about the boat like that, man. Don't talk about Blake Bortles like that. It even goes back to college, man. He was catching passes from Matt McGloin and Hackenberg, bro.
Penn State never did him any favors.
Hey.
I mean, for me, Allen Robinson, the first time I had any exposure to Allen Robinson was I didn't know anything about him. I took him as a flyer the year that he had his 1,400-yard season with Jacksonville and Blake Bortles, who, obviously turned out to be one of the worst, it and then busts that I've ever seen in my life. But, Allen Robinson, has had the short end of the stick for so many years, and you really couldn't just help but feel for him that they grabbed Justin Fields, because I feel like Allen Robinson turned to whoever he was sitting with watching the draft and just hugged them for a long time. He was probably very happy. I'm sure he was out in the street lighting fireworks.
Well, how do you think it actually impacts, and Ian, maybe you have some take on this too, in terms of Allen Robinson long-term, actually, in terms of, you signed the franchise tag this year. So do you think it actually, Justin Fields works out, Chicago can actually retain a guy like Allen Robinson instead of him, just going to the best situation?
It helps, man, because Fields sure as hell has a better chance of being a great long-term QB in Chicago than Andy freaking Dalton does. But
absolutely,
I would just say, man, A-Rob was one of 3 players in the league last year to have more than 150 targets. If we have Fields come in, be a little bit more run first as he's kind of learning NFL offenses and that stuff, which he would be far from the first rookie to kind of go through that. It might not be quite as great for A-Rob in fantasy as everyone's making it out to be. Yes, I agree. Fields is going to be his best quarterback he's ever played with. I think Terry McLaurin is probably the guy where people are letting go under the radar, the real big upgrade we're seeing at QB. Because McLaurin, man, Alex Smith, Kyle Allen, Dwayne Haskins, he was starting to rack up his own list of just tragedies that he's really dealt with at the QB position. Even going back to JT Barrett, just hasn't been all pretty for Terry McLaurin. So, with my guy F1, Ryan Fitzpatrick, look at all these veteran receivers he's gotten, these baller, third contracts and stuff. Old man Brandon Marshall on the Jets, Stevie Johnson doing his thing on those Bills teams. Devontae Parker finally pops out when Fitzpatrick is doing his thing with the Dolphins. So I think McLaurin, man, even with Curtis Samuel and Diami Brown entering that offense, I just think, they actually complement each other well enough that this Washington passing game, man, is going to be to the moon. And when we're looking at McLaurin, Samuel, Diami, Antonio Gibson, Logan Thomas, and we're like, all these receivers are pretty good. How come their QB has an ADP outside the top 20? It's a good question, man, because Fitzpatrick is one of the best veteran winners from the draft, man. Only Taylor Heineke to beat out was a fun wild card game, but don't get it twisted, man. Fitzpatrick has been like a top 15 quarterback for each of the past 3-4 years. I expect him to go out and do big things in fantasy and help McLaurin do the same.
Yep, and I read your article, earlier today that you wrote about the veteran fantasy winners, and so many guys in there. What were some of the top guys that you really highlighted from that article, and why did they win, from this draft?
Yeah, I mentioned Fitz. I thought Jay brought up good points about Sam Darnold. I don't think Sam Darnold is good, but at the same time, like
Neither do I.
similar thing. We like Joe Brady, we like McCaffrey, we like DJ Moore, we like Robbie Anderson, we like Terrence
Someone's
Marshall.
gotta throw it to him.
He's gonna put up some numbers, and like low key, the one thing Darnold did good last year was actually his rushing ability. He kind of showed a floor for the first time ever. I'm still wrapping my mind around that like 40-yard touchdown he had against the Broncos, but he's not a statue, man. So I'm not fully giving up on Darnold yet. And at a minimum, like this is the perfect example of a guy we can buy at his floor as opposed to his ceiling. So yeah, if no one's like, you might get laughed at for taking Sam Darnold, but you're getting laughed at for like a 13th round pick, not, something high. So it really isn't that big of a deal. Moving, I think the running back situation is pretty easy to see the winners. Myles Gaskin, Mike Davis, these are both rock solid RB2s now that we don't know their competition. Chris Carson and Joe Mixon, I think, are RB1s that people need to kind of wrap their minds around. Carson was the RB5 before he got hurt, weeks 1 through 5. Comes back in weeks 12 through 17. He was the RB12. Like for Pete Carroll to go through the fumble palooza that was 2019 and say, I don't care, you're still our guy. And then for Carson to get hurt, and then for him to still say, I don't care, you're our guy, and they want to run the ball more. Get behind Chris Carson, people. If he would have gone somewhere else, maybe not, but he's back in Seattle. Same thing with Joe Mixon, Giovanni Bernard leaving. Like, don't let past injuries. Like people are like not drafting Carson and Mixon because he got injured last year. Where's that concern with Christian McCaffrey? Like just we need to, we can't just hold an injury against one guy and just completely ignore it for someone else. So I think we see that happening a little bit here. Wide receiver, A.J. Brown, my guy, 200 targets incoming. Gotta love it. I think Nelson Aguilar on the Patriots is someone that if you just go around the league and say, who is the cheapest number one receiver I can probably get, might very well be Nelson Aguilar. Visca Chenault, DJ Chark, very happy the Jaguars did not add a wide receiver. I am not buying Marvin Jones. And finally, I would say draft Anthony Ferkser, people, the prime late round tight end, unless you want to go back to the well with Chris Herndon with me.
I like Gerald Everett too for that late round tight ends. Russell Wilson does still love his tight ends, and he's there by himself. Really.
And Higbee, yep.
I get creamed every time I bring up Higbee. I just stopped doing it for my own mental sanity. People don't buy it. I have no idea. People don't think Tyler Higbee's good. I mean, they think he's primarily a pro. Yeah, that's what I say.
This is a group of 3 that says that, man. Fuck that. Who cares?
Absolutely.
Bro, we don't have games where Higbee had like 10 targets and he did nothing. Gerald Everett split time with him. Gerald Everett's gone. They did not replace Gerald Everett. The last time this happened, he went on the 5-game stretch that caused everyone to overdraft him in the first place. So Higbee has tight end 6. No, get the hell out of here. Higbee has tight end 16? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, so we went through all of that draft recap, but I want to ask you one thing, which is, one of your specialties. Let's talk best ball. It is best ball season. You do a best ball stream every Friday night. So tell us, what are your strategies that you're targeting? What makes the best ball lineup right now? Because I've had my own share of dabbling into it. I'm not sure if Jay has, but at 14P we like to do one every Sunday. I've done a bunch and I'm getting into it. I love it. I've never played best ball before this season, so. But you are a master at it. So tell us all about it.
I would just say, don't go into a draft saying I'm a 0 RB guy or I'm going to do this or that. Take the draft as it comes and adjust accordingly. And, it might sound simple, but freaking do it, people. Like generally, I would say, I hate the name. I always say this, but modified 0 RB, I think is a strategy. Go get your freaking workhorse, take some baller receivers and, build out the rest of the roster. In general, I do think, I'm going running backs earlier than receivers because I just feel like, more optimal roster construction. You're going 2 or 3 QBs, really only 4, maybe 5 running backs if you don't get the good ones early. And then wide receiver, you're taking legit 8 or 9, probably only 2 tight ends. And that's if you're going for the big tournaments. But, and keep in mind, too, if you're doing the tournament for $1 million, you're trying to be contrarian enough to stand out. we don't like the Jets. We don't like the Lions. But you know what? Like, they're going to beat yards there. And all those guys, again, you can build like the entire Lions offense stack pretty much, other than Hawkinson, in rounds 10 or later. It's pretty similar with the Jets. So when you want to stack, again, we're just trying to build the most optimal lineup for our best case scenario. First or last. We do not want to, have a freaking 45th percentile lineup. That's doing nobody any good. First or last, I think you can, do your thing early on, get the guys you want in rounds 10 through 11, and then actually build a Jets or Lions stack where, yeah, guys, I get it. They're not great. That's why they aren't being priced highly at all. But when you look at these teams, their defense is going to suck. They're going to be throwing the ball. And we actually have a decent idea of who it's at least going to be going to for now. So I think, not being afraid to embrace, some of the bad teams in the later rounds of the draft for guys who are being priced near their floors can certainly help matters. And again, just be fluid with it. So, but check out Fridays, usually 6 p.m. Myself, John Daigle, and a guest always go through best ball draft over at Underdog Fantasy. We're doing it on the NBC Sports. It's the fucking Roto-Roll stream. You guys know who's doing it. Yeah, I don't want to call him by a new name, man. Screw that. So, but yeah, man, it's a good time. And hey, everyone, drafting is always the most fun part of fantasy football. That's all best ball is.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've been cooking up this take for a little bit that I'm sure we're just talking contrarian. We're talking about a couple things here, man. We're talking Cam Akers over Jonathan Taylor. I know you've been cooking that one up. Maybe give some of Sam's viewers, a little explanation on that.
You are absolutely right. Look, if I was starting a team, give me Jonathan Taylor over Cam Akers. That's not the game we're playing. We're trying to say who's going to score more fantasy points. And I just think in terms of total touches, how could it not be Cam Akers? We know no matter what, Nyheim Hines is going to be the Colts pass down back. I think Marlon Mack is going to make this a 3-back committee because it was a 3-back committee for almost the entirety of last season with Jordan Wilkins, Taylor, and Nyheim Hines. Now, credit to Jonathan Taylor for balling out at the end. I will bring up that it came against the freaking Packers, Texans, Jaguars, the softest end of the season schedule you could ask for. Whatever. He's a beast. I'm not going to hold that against him. Cam Akers had a similar baller end run to the season, and he did it taking over the backfield. Darrell Henderson was healthy enough. He wasn't sitting on the sideline inactive until week 17. Akers took over the backfield while Henderson was there. Malcolm Brown is gone in Jacksonville? Miami, that's right. Yeah. It was a Florida team. We still got some time to lock down the rosters, guys. Give me a break. But with Akers, man, to me, his best case scenario is as the Todd Gurley role, what we saw from 2017 and 2019, where usually it was Todd Gurley, but if not, man, CJ Anderson, even Malcolm Brown for a couple of weeks. Right. Sean McVay's RB1 played at least 60% of their snaps in 48 of 52 games before last year. I think they needed to figure out what was going on, who the committee is going to be, and basically okay, I understand Darrell Henderson isn't just a jag. He could maybe come in and make it a committee, but again, for me, the ceiling of Cam Akers is just higher than Jonathan Taylor, even if Taylor's a better real life back, because Taylor's worst case is a 3-back committee, Akers is a 2-back, and the best case is Cam Akers getting the most fantasy friendly role arguably in the entire NFL.
And I will say I am snapping up Henderson late round in all my best ball leagues, and a lot of my leagues this year, just because if Cam Akers goes down, he's not the most durable guy in the world. We saw that last year. It took some time to get going because he was injured at the start of the season. So if he goes down, like you said, Sean McVay is going to give him an RB1 workload. There is no Malcolm Brown anymore to affect him. So that'll be Henderson, into a high-end RB2 type of role there right away, if not sealing out at a RB1. So it's nice to have him. I don't own a ton of Akers because I think he's just being drafted way too early there. I also would like him over Taylor right now just because he's going to get so much work, and we have no idea what kind of workload that Marlon Mack and Nyheim Hines are going to see. So I'm still going to take Cam Akers, but if he goes down, Henderson's right there as well. I think he's a great backup stash.
I got one more. And Ian, I don't want to put you on the hot seat here, but on my podcast a couple months ago, I got a hot take from you, man. Maybe something that people would be surprised from, but I think you've changed it now. You said Justin Jefferson then was the dynasty wide receiver one. Oh. Now the Titans didn't take a wide receiver, and I know you're back on that A.J. Brown train. Not like you ever left. But explain that to us. Is AJ Brown now your dynasty wide receiver one set up? It's all done.
I don't know. I wouldn't say this draft necessarily changed it. I mean, you know, Dez Fitzpatrick, excuse me, was not the guy I envisioned the Titans taking. Obviously, you know, it's better. I don't even know if it's better for AJ Brown that they took him. Like, I think you could argue that adding someone like Elijah Moore might have almost been better to take away some of the attention. More volume is better. I get it, but you know, there's already going to be like they could have added Elijah Moore and still had enough volume to give AJ Brown
100%.
So much
workload he really needed. So I don't know, man. It's 1A, 1B. I have a feeling, you know, when I come out with my, because, you know, I don't have my dynasty ranks down anywhere. I have a feeling when it comes time to submit my dynasty ranks, I'm going to look at that and I'm going to say, do I really want to not put AJB wide receiver one? So, you know, I do think it is between those two guys for sure. And you know what, Jay, fuck it. Let's go AJB wide receiver one.
I'm just going to say, I mean, just from following along a little bit, it seems like it's altered from AJ Brown wide receiver one season to AJ Brown the wide receiver one season. So,
hey, I'll tell you this. The second Aaron, that's the first tweet off my account, the second Aaron Rodgers. Like, the second we get any sort of actual you know, what's going on with that. Yeah. Once we know what's going on in that situation, we know Devontae Adams is catching passes from Jordan freaking Love.
Dude, I'm so scared.
It will be AJB the wide receiver one season then.
I'm so scared of that. How far does Devontae Adams fall if Jordan Love is the QB there?
Yeah, and I didn't mean to put you on the hot seat. But everyone's always, you know, you're always associated with the AJ Brown stuff. You can even see in the comments here, everyone's talking about it. So everyone wants to hear you say it. So, you know, there you go.
But this has been absolutely great, guys. Ian,
real quick. Hold on.
Go for it.
I'm just happy that's the conversation we're having now, man, because this time last year, everybody was yelling regression. He can't possibly be that good again. And it was like, people, when someone is historic Hall of Fame caliber good, you don't just say they're going to get back to average. You say, okay, you know, maybe they're not going to average like 12 yards, 13 yards per target again, but there's still someone I want on my fantasy team. And that's the thing. Like Jefferson versus AJB, you're happy either way.
100%.
Absolutely. But Ian, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on with us. This has been great, so informative. And you know, I want to appreciate you coming on again. And why don't you let everyone know where they can find you, you know, your podcast, all that.
Thank you, guys. Good time talking ball. Always down to talk.
Absolutely.
You know, hey, man, you know, I don't mind. I like watching my Cleveland Indians, my Cleveland Cavaliers, but, you know, for a full-time workhorse standpoint, it's 365 days a year football.
Absolutely.
That's exactly how I treat it over at the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast, pff.com. Again, people, I got T. Higgins coming on the pod Friday. Make sure you check that out. Great stuff from him. Even convinced T to put a touchdown bet in to potentially change his number from 85 to 5 over the years. So, you know, as much as I love the game of fantasy football, I still got to kind of keep in mind, you know, the swag that goes with it. And it pained me because I am, you know, as I'm only 28 now, but with just the numbers, man, I want to see my wide receivers wear number 80, but to see T just be there, and you know, he even said, he was like, my heart is with number 5, and he said he wanted to keep 85 because the fans like it. And I was like, bro, just make a 10 touchdown bet. And then everyone's happy. If you score that many touchdowns, you can switch to your numbers. So check that out. And yeah, Twitter @iHeartIts. But yeah, bro, it's good time talking ball.
Yo, it's too late for them to switch these single digits where Reggie Bush isn't in the league anymore, man. I mean, you gotta let Reggie play in 5 in that would. I'm out here in Southern California, man. Grew up with Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush playing in 5 would have made all the difference.
Absolutely. Jay, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, man. Every Thursday, 9:30 Eastern time, 14 personnel at 14P_pod. You find me there every Thursday with Ben over there, my co-host, and you know we have a blast going through all sorts of stuff. We're going to do a draft recap tomorrow, and you know this was fun, man. Sam, happy that you had me on here, man. Happy to chop it up with Ian again, and this was fun. I'm sure we'll do it again sometime, and you know you can find me over at 14P_pod.
Absolutely.
And at my handle down below, just for my personal stuff.
And at JR. And then as for me, you guys can find me at Swagman95 on Twitter, at The Show FF on Twitter. And I also am a member of the 14 personnel at 14P_pod. But thank you guys for tuning in. Good night.